Good evening, YouTube. Sunday, May 10th, 2:25 in the morning. So tonight I want to dedicate this video to the children of Gaza in Lebanon and to the girls' school that was intentionally bombed by a Tomahawk missile with the United States signature on it. And also compliments of Israel as well. Here's a little piece that I keep by my computer, one of my favorite sculptures by another artist. Get his name for you. Get coordinated here. Clark Wolfe, Wolfe. And this one says, signing 8/27/94. I'm not sure if he's still around, but in his genre, I believe he was very famous. He did a lot of gnomes, which I have a collection of thanks to an eBay seller that I stumbled upon one evening and scooped them up. He mainly did gnomes, but he would from time to time he would do something standalone that was not about gnomes, and this is one of those pieces. So it's kind of rare that he would do that, but he most certainly did. So this is it. A little mouse sitting on a corn cob with a snail. Trying to get there we go. My camera is having a tricky time with it. Wants to focus on me. There it is. So when I look at this piece and the innocence of it, it reminds me of a time when I was a child and I had no contexts, just simply looking and wondering about things and filling in the blanks. And sometimes the blanks simply were just blanks, and the mystery could just be itself without any kind of input from the ego or the intellectual mind, categorizing, theorizing, hypothesizing. And I think about the demonizing of children by Israel and also the United States. Colonizer mindset does that. It's a demonic aspect, but I'm not using demonic in the sense of, let's say, religion, because I think religion has a very simplistic idea of demonic. I feel like if religion really knew and was concerned with demonic situations, the world would be a better place. But it isn't. It's more involved with its own self-image and status quo. Not rocking the boat too much so it can keep face with being cordial and polite. And I suppose that's what wars are for. When churches justify wars, they're more of a proxy influence rather than direct, at least in this day and age. So, get myself adjusted here. Here's the piece that I'm speaking about, and pardon the camera. I think the focus is a little odd tonight, but I'll barrel through this because I feel like I want to keep the momentum of where my stream of thought is going with the children and what's happening in the world. And sometimes being out of focus is appropriate, because I feel like in many ways, by a government's own actions, life itself cannot truly see. Like, it has cataracts over its eyes, and the government can be a reflection of the people and the people of the government. So it's a tricky thing. So here's the piece. So this piece is called "Every Difficult Childhood Births a New Fae." And fae is simply an old term for the word fairy. And there's a longer explanation of this piece on my art only YouTube page or channel. This piece is about 5 inches tall, and it's 2 parts. There's the beaver mandibles that acts as a stand, and then the head. And you can see the fairy in the middle, which is a pre-existing vintage casting that I included in the composition during the pour. So that's fused in with the molten pewter. And this was created 2 different molds. One was a silicon mold for the mandibles, and those are both cast separate, and then I fused them together, the 2 halves. And then the face was cast in something called red casting sand, which is an old school sand that's inoculated with some kind of minor petroleum product to keep it pliable and resistant. And curiously enough, when you pour 400 degrees molten pewter, it doesn't catch on fire or smoke or anything. So I'm not exactly sure what is in the sand, but it's quite effective, and you can get it on sites like eBay. I use it from time to time. And I mentioned in the other video that museum wax is very good at stabilizing things on shelves and pedestals. This piece might need a little bit of museum wax if the patron feels like it might get bumped or vibrated. It's not super fragile, but it could slide forward if hit or bumped. But you can see how the shark's teeth lean up against the flanges of the beaver mandibles. And so that's sort of how it sits on the stand. And the object at the very top of the back of the head is a bovine tooth, as far as I recall. And then, of course, we have the shark's teeth, lots of seashells, semi-precious geodes and agates. And I'll put a link to its web page on my website in the description. There's some obsidian to the left there at the bottom. Pewter is very maternal. It absorbs and wraps around things, and it's a very accepting medium for sculpture. There are things with it that you cannot do with any other metal. They're just simply too hot. Aluminum, bronze, cast iron. So a lot of unexplored potential, I feel, with pewter. Highly underestimated sculptural medium. And as far as casting, it's been around for 2,000 plus years. So it's not a contemporary substance as far as like the old school pewter plates and belt buckles and different things they used to cast. More utilitarian. I feel like its potential for fine art, for a fine art medium, is enormous. And in my mind, it outranks bronze in many ways. And for me, one of the biggest things is that it's 1-to-1 scale of to the original sculpture. There's no lost wax, so there's no shrinkage. All bronzes that you see in the world are 10 to 13% smaller than the original. Whereas every pewter casting that I've done is 1-to-1. to the original sculpture. And I've done the measurements, so I know this to be true. And I've also done comparisons in like with the bronze of the original and the pewter of the original from the same mold, in the sense of casting directly into the mother mold with the pewter and then doing a wax from the same mold and then taking it through the bronze process. So, per my usual, I'm going to switch back over to the big screen. Thank you for staying with me here. And I'll be right back. So with presenting this piece tonight, I felt like it was appropriate, or at least it coincided or triggered thinking about the children involved in these ethnic cleansing campaigns. I'm going to take a look at something just because I'm curious and it's bugging me. Okay. It's me. I had a sneaky suspicion that it could just be me who's out of focus. So from October 8th forwards, Netanyahu had exclaimed that it was going to be a war, a battle between the children of light and the children of darkness. And this is, of course, the bottom of the barrel fascist mentality. And it didn't take Israel very long to get there. I mean, it had been there since day one, from 1948 and onwards. Its disdain for the Palestinians has only grown more violent and more complicated in their ways of exploiting the destruction of dignity, ownership, pride, and I don't mean negative pride, but I mean in the sense of taking away that which one has earned in an honest way, land, property, burning olive groves that are hundreds and hundreds of years old, bulldozing ancestral homes, cemeteries, keeping the dead hostage from families, burying people in mass graves that are just simply numbered, where families basically are left not knowing where their loved ones are buried, and or even if they're buried. Children, I feel like something that I feel a bit alienated around is feeling. And it seems like when I speak to people about Gaza and what's happening there, that my angst around it cannot be, like, it's almost as if others have no place for that. Like, it's almost like there's a key missing from the piano, and it's not like there's a void where the key was. It was simply a piano built without the key. And so they've been playing on this piano their whole lives, thinking that that's all the keys. And yet one of the most important keys has always been missing. So when they go to play some music that's not their own, they can't. I don't. I'm not going to have a video tonight around complaining about others. I'm just saying that it's just an odd thing that there's simply what I feel to be a malfunction or a dysfunction in empathizing and using your creative imagination and feeling the footage that is being offered out to the public of what's happening to these children. Any child. And in this world, there is a extraordinary mental health pathology and ancestral heritage of mental health issues that simply get heroized and celebrated and normalized. And this is the demon in the wedding cake, in my opinion. It's normalized, and yet it redundantly creates hell on earth and acts as an antagonist against a better way forward. And maybe that's just the way the format of existing on this planet in the middle of space, floating in amongst other planets and asteroid belts. Maybe that's just what this place is about. Protagonists and antagonists. And it both being, it's like having a romantic picnic and the camera pans out and the picnic blanket is set out over a giant meat grinder that's 5 city blocks wide, 15 stories tall, and it's been turned off for this special event. It's just disheartening that that children are not enough of a reason to not go to war. That in the minds of the people involved in war, children are not a deterrent. And in the United States case, they were their first target because a lot of the military in Iran, their children went to that school. So it is said that that's one of the reasons the school was hit, to do a kind of psyops on those political figures. And if anything, it only emboldened those sentient beings that were connected to those children, and gave them an even greater reason to not give a millimeter back to such barbarism and insanity. To think about the dreams that have been erased by Israel, all the hard work of the parents, entire family lineages wiped off the face of the planet, whole lineages that will even never be possibly known because there's no one around to account, to say anything. And so many thousands of orphaned children. And what is still happening in Gaza, the ethnic cleansing is still occurring. The assassinations, the badgering of dignity and humanity. And Israel has a habit of, when it loses in Lebanon, it takes it out on Gaza. And then they lose it in Gaza, they take it out on the West Bank. So it's a sad redundancy of cowardice, privilege, and cult programming. If you go back and you investigate early Ben Gurion quotes and the Balfour Papers, Theodore Herzl, all these sociopaths and just pure high-functioning psychopaths. And the United States has their own. I mean, Trump is no exceptional psychopath. He just is what he is. And his cabinet, not unlike Joe Biden's cabinet, Anthony Blinken is a prime example of a high-functioning psychopath. And Mark Miller, Vedant Patel, the list goes on and on. Enablers, which to a hand, the fingers count. And so all these individuals are just as culpable as Joe Biden and Netanyahu. Not that Netanyahu and Joe Biden and Donald Trump are ultimately the center of attention, so to speak. They're on a hand of a controller, the corporations, the military-industrial complex, the oil barons, the shareholders in various stocks, all the corporations that are built upon making a profit from conflict and control. So Iran getting the rights to the Hormuz Strait, threatening to sever the internet cable that runs under the Hormuz Strait, privatizing all that. It's going to be, it could very well be an instigation for World War III. We'll see how it goes. But it's a huge loss for the colonizer mindset and cult lifestyle and system that has been built up over there since 1948 and before, with Britain's reign of terror across the globe. So these cults of fascism and rule are not Israel learned from others how to do it. They're not doing anything original. They're just basically imitating Britain. And yet the apartheid that's in Israel is far worse than it was in South Africa. And it has been said so by South Africans that experienced that apartheid. So back to the children. Tonight, I just wanted to show that little mouse as proof of a deep, deep loss that this world has suffered, that the reconciliation of that will haunt whoever's responsible. I'm sure of it. It will haunt them in ways that only haunting can surmise. That it's a phenomenon that's not meant for the human consciousness to conceive, but only receive. And whatever that looks like, it will collect. And yet, in my mind, the reconciliation could never equal what that child would have become and its potential. And I can only hope that the universe simply pressed a pause button and not stop. And whatever that potential was that was snuffed out by an ethno-supremacist statehood was reactivated elsewhere to carry on whatever that sentient being's desires, dreams, ambitions, hopes, loves, and curiosity wished and wishes. And to the parents of those children, if they're still alive, I don't know what to say other than you're acknowledged. And people do think about you. I don't know what that really means, like if it even matters. I hope it matters. So I think that's it for tonight. Wanted to get this out there and stay consistent with the channel. Thank you for spending time, and like and subscribe, leave a comment. There's some links in the description you may find useful, and I wish you a good rest of the weekend. Thank you and good night.